Injuries to start with. Any changes from the previous squad at all?
I doubt it, only that Woody obviously got a sort of 20-odd minutes or whatever and came through that okay. Dale Stevens got a few minutes as well and seemingly come through that okay. They were both on the grass today, so I'm expecting them to be available. The other lads, I think with the three in the week, it's a tough call for us. You know, they're close, especially Johan and Robbie. So we're going to have to see, but it is tight now. We just keep losing players constantly. So, you know, we're probably going to have to make a call on them and see if the right side of it and maybe leave them. So it's a tough call, but we might have to do that.
Is it a double-edged sword that the next game comes around so quickly then, in the sense that, in one sense, you know, like you say, the players are stretched and some are struggling, but at the same time, it's an opportunity to try and get rid of that thoughts or negative thoughts about that defeat to Spurs at the weekend?
No, that goes pretty quick. You know, we're well versed in playing them games, you know, and I said straight after the game, if they turn up and you don't, you get beat against the really top clubs. It's simple as that in my experience. And that's exactly what happened. They turned up, were clinical in the right times, and we weren't. Gave away too many soft goals. So that has to get parked quickly. We've been down them results before, so I'm not too worried about that side of things. The injury side I'm still worried about, because we just can't get everyone fit, and that's been a real challenge to us. And obviously we're coming up against the Leicester side, who are having their fair share at the moment as well. And you know, we've had it for a long period now, and that's been, you know, it's been a big challenge coming through that period, but we have come through it, still got wins, still got good points on the board, relatively speaking, with the challenge we've had. So we certainly look for the group's mentality to stay strong through this period, regardless of the odd hit that we take during a season, which we often have done.
One nice little bright spark from the weekend, though, was Lewis Richardson getting his debut and coming on as an 18-year-old, Burnley's youngest ever player. I mean, a great little fillip for him and nice for some of the players around him, I guess.
Well, I think within this period, I've mentioned many times, I've never been one really to try and use that situation to sort of suggest that we haven't got any players. We have got players, they're often young players, and Rico's been doing nicely for the young players with Steve Stone and that group. He's had his ups and downs, but lately he's really applied himself well, and Stoney spoke very highly of him. He's been with the first team on and off for a number of months, really. And I think it was appropriate. You know, the game had got away from us, but why not give him a taste of what his future might be if he continues to apply himself and affect games?
As you mentioned, Leicester, they might be suffering a bit as well. I mean, Harvey Barnes, having gone off at the weekend, it looks like he's going to have to have surgery. So that's a blow for them. We don't know whether Vardy's going to play. There seems to be a lot of clubs similar to yourselves that are really starting to struggle, particularly at this time of the season now, after such a hectic schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all trying to be balanced about it. We're all trying to recognise the bigger picture of football and the challenge there are. I think it's just a bit of a challenge when, for example, we've had so many games, we've had so many injuries, it's not really been accounted for. And then when the international break comes around, it looks like we're going to have 3 weeks break. So, you know, you'd think there was a better way of maybe mixing the games up. But alongside that, as I've made clear many times, everyone's trying to do the right thing. Everyone's trying to work as hard as they can through this strange season and strange events in the world. So I think we just get on with it regardless of the challenge. It's not ideal. It's not ideal for the players. It's just one of them ironic twists of the programme we have to go through when the world's talking about health and safety, and yet we're asking more and more and more of the players. So there is no balance to that. But the challenge is quite obvious, fitting all the games into a game schedule that we all knew was going to be a very, very busy season. So we get on with it.
And as for Leicester, Brendan Rodgers seems to be putting together a good side there, a side that looked like they could be top 4 challengers on a fairly regular basis, the way things are going for them.
Yeah, I think to be fair to Brendan, I think he recognised it when he went in there. I think they were kind of piecing together a side anyway before that under the previous couple of managers, and then Brendan's added his feel to it, and I think he's done a great job. You know, he's kind of brought a couple in who he thought had shown signs, and I think he's manipulated the side into the way he wants it to play. And as I said, done a great job there so far. I mean, they fell away at the end last season, but they'd had a really good season, and now it's whether they can take that on this season and stay in that top 4. But I recognise the work he's done and they've done as a collective, because I think they're a really good outfit. You know, They can play, they can press, they can defend as well. And even with the challenge they've had more recently with injuries, they've still applied themselves to get good results. Obviously, a tougher week last week with Europe and then Arsenal and losing players. But generally speaking, over a season, I think they'll be very, very pleased with the way things are going. And I think Brendan will be and should be, rightly so.
And over the weekend, a couple of big talking points. Our old friend handball seems to be back in the news again. Is there still too much confusion and chaos around what constitutes a handball as far as you're concerned?
No, I think it's tough. We had one against West Brom, might have got us out of jail in an ugly performance, but it I think it did touch the lad's thigh, it hit him on the arm. I didn't want to cry it in too much, but you've seen them given. I think it's really difficult, the handball thing. A lot of the rules, I think over the last few years, the powers that be of why they keep messing around with the rules is beyond some of us, because the game's got more and more complicated. Of course, the game does get more complicated in many ways and more detailed. But if you keep adding on more of these, like the minutiae and the forensic kind of feel of football, it's getting to a place when referees it's hard to make these decisions on the moment. Then you get VAR, and it's seemingly something I believe in, but seems to be not quite aligned or streamlined in the way that the referees are seeing things. And yet again, going too forensic, where they can't sort of, or seemingly can't disassociate themselves with the screen for a minute and just to remind themselves they're referees and what they would see and what they'd normally see. And, especially handball, and especially with people going down in the box, the tiniest touch that would never make you fall over in the rest of the pitch suddenly is a penalty and things like this. So I think I do believe in VAR. I believe it can be used properly, and I think it will get better. The handball situation is just tough. I think we're all scratching our heads what gets given and what doesn't get given on a weekly basis sometimes.
With that in mind, then, do you think we should have some sort of opportunity to at least hear from referees to sometimes find out what their thinking process is behind some of the decisions that they're making?
No, not necessarily. I think, yet again, I think the referees, I always say the three hardest jobs for me on any given game day, the two managers and the referee, all under scrutiny for different reasons. I don't think it's relevant at the moment. They should hear, what they're saying or what they're thinking. I think that should be a private moment between the referee and the VAR, let's say, if they walk over to the screen or whatever. I think it's right that it gets looked at, refereeing, the same as football management, players, etc., etc. I just wonder whether sometimes they've got to slow it down. Not the referees, by the way, the powers that be, when they keep fiddling with the rules. I think sometimes you've got to just slow it down and give the game a chance to breathe and let everyone get. It seems like every time we just get somewhere, they add another twist on a rule or another, tiny word into a rule, and it just seems to, make it even more or even harder to differentiate what is and what's not. I mean, the offside one now, it's crazy. It plays on, and you're going to get someone injured. It plays on that far now, and then the flag goes up, and everyone in the stadium, well, not now, but all the management, the staff, everyone can see that it's clearly offside, and both managers look at each other and all agree. But the referees have got to do their job. That's what they're told to do. They're told to let it play, how long you let it play for, etc., before the flag goes up. There's all twists and turns of the rules when it sort of seems to have just got very bitty and a bit complicated for me. But then I'm not the brightest.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Fraser. Hi, Katie, PLP.
Hi, Sean. Good afternoon. Just going back to, obviously, great to have Chris and Dale back for those few minutes at the end of the last game. But two more games this week, and still the reality of the somewhat reduced picks for you. Do the boys still feel at the moment that they can be hungry to go out and hunt these goals, or is it a case of kind of protecting what you've got given the realities?
No, I think, look, we try, and go on the front foot. I thought some of our attacking play against Tottenham, for example, was actually half decent. The front third, the final moment was the bit, the moment of truth is the final moment, the pass, the cross, the finish. We applied ourselves to that side of things, but you've got to get the balance. You've got to make sure you defend properly. I don't think we've ever gone into games not trying to score, I can assure you, not trying to be productive. Sometimes it's the opposition, sometimes you have a quiet day. The mixture of it. It's finding the right balance. And I think we're still searching for that somewhat. We found it at some times the other week at Palace. I thought we were excellent at both ends of the pitch. And a bit quieter against West Brom for sure. And then obviously yesterday they were too strong for us, and that sometimes happens.
Obviously you always, even after the Spurs result, seemed so kind of to the point but positive about kind of how things have unfolded. Does that reflect down to your team? Do you think that they can easily put that to one side and progress on what's arguably quite a difficult next few match rounds?
Well, to be honest, it's not. We don't park it without thought, but it still needs to be parked. You've got to move on quickly. You know, the Premier League, well, never more so than this schedule that we've had. So don't get me wrong, we don't just brush things under the carpet. We talk about it, we analyse it. We did some analysis today. We make sense of it. But the thinking has to go away quickly, you know. And we've got a real honesty to our group in the way they work. I've always been incredibly proud of how the players operate here and the honesty they operate with. So it certainly wasn't a lack of physicality yesterday. They were very good. We didn't do the jobs that we normally do, but they have a real clear awareness of what's needed. You know, most of our players have been around the Premier League for a little while now, certainly a couple of 3 seasons, and then some more so. So I think they know what's required, and they know that the feeling of the Premier League is that games can get away from you, against anyone, by the way. And when they do, it's how you operate straight after that to get yourself prepared for the next one. So, you know, that'll be the key thing, just focusing on the next challenge, regardless of our own internal challenges with injuries, you know, sticking with that strong mentality to go and perform again, and that's what we'll look to do.
And talking of analysis, what did you make of Roy Keane's analysis that he could have played in your side? Will you be sending him an invite to training, do you think?
He probably could have. I don't know whether you remember, but he was pretty decent, to be fair. It wouldn't surprise me if he could have, to be fair to him. But no, look, I've never had a problem with people questioning us, what we do. It's part of their jobs. You know, they're pundits for a reason. They have a voice, they have a say. I've never been precious about that. Everyone's got an opinion on football, trust me, not just pundits, everyone. It's one of the strangest jobs, you know, where people actually tell you what you're doing wrong. I don't remember going in the doctors and telling him what he was doing wrong, or my lawyer, or my solicitors. But apparently football managers, everyone thinks they can do better than us. So I'm used to that. It's just part of the territory. And I've certainly got no problem with Roy Keane or his views.
It's a good job we can only have 20 managers, otherwise I think there'd be a few thousand thinking they could do it.
Yeah, a few million in our case, trust me. Every person I meet seriously tells me what I should be doing. I just go, okay, I'll try and do that as well.
Looking ahead to Leicester, of course, Brendan admits that there is a lacking midfield for him and there's a lot on Yuri Tolman's shoulders. Are there any gaps in the offensive that you think your boys can truly capitalise on tomorrow?
Well, the first thing we've got to do is get ourselves right. You know, it's not always we have to look at the opposition, of course, and be aware of them, but we've got to get our own performances right. The last 2 have been off of what we normally do. Different reasons for that, but we've got to make sure we're on top of our own performance, not overthink the opposition. You know, but I think the growth in players, you know, from Brendan's point of view, if he's mentioning, you know, Tielemans, you know, you got to remember he wasn't, you know, like 5,000 quid, you know, he was 36 million. So I think you would expect them players to grow. And I think Brendan likes them types of players, you know, the players who can grow. And I think there's a clutch of them there, actually. Unfortunately, they are missing a couple, especially Harvey Barnes, who's done terrific, and Maddison, who's done so well. You know, they're really good young players, and Tielemans is another one. So, you know, I think they're a good group who operate well, and I appreciate Brendan's challenges because we've had a lot ourselves. But like I say, it more comes down to, at the moment, we've got to keep focusing on what we're doing, get ourselves back to where we were just a very short time ago. We were excellent against Palace. We were at least solid against Fulham, and just come away from it the last couple of games. We do need our players to get fit, but equally, the players that are playing, we know they can operate at a better standard than they've done the last couple.
Perfect. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Fine down.